Welcome back to Self Invested, and sorry it's been so long since my last video upload. For those of you that don't know, in June last year my wife gave birth to our second daughter Eden, and that just threw all of my plans out of the window. I thought my video uploads were going to slow down. Before I was doing one a week, and I thought maybe it would slow down to one a month, but I didn't plan to stop altogether. But we're here now, 8 months later, and I'm back with a video talking with my friend Joella about her Help to Buy experience. During our chat, we talk about living in a new development and some of the things that you need to be aware of if that's something you plan to do. And we also talk about why she chose to use the Help to Buy scheme and what she thinks about it 5 years on. Now, there was a bit of a technical glitch when I recorded this video, and it only recorded Joella's video. So you can't see me during our chat, but you can hear me. So hopefully that doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the video. If you do find it useful, make sure you give the video a like. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. So tell us about the place that you bought.
It's a 2-bedroom flat with one ensuite. One of the rooms has an ensuite bathroom, and then you've got your main bathroom. It's got a balcony. It's a nice development. So you've got a nice communal garden. We've got and not a lot of properties in London are coming with this at the moment, but we've got our own underground parking space, which is nice. And that and we don't actually pay extra for that as well. So I know in a lot of later developments, particularly in the area that we're in, they're not coming with parking spaces at all. You even got townhouses and they're not sold a parking space with their home. So you've got a 4-bedroom townhouse and they have no parking space.
They have to pay an additional sort of cost for a parking
Well,
space.
no, they weren't even offered. They can't.
There's not even the option.
No. It's meant to be a so in line with sort of London Mayor of London. It's meant to be like a really eco-friendly borough. The problem with that is that they're only just building the train station there. So I can understand if it's super well connected, but right now it's kind of in that Thames estuary area, which doesn't have a lot of development. It will come. So in the next, I think the train station is actually meant to open at the end of this year.
So where's your flat?
So it's in Barking. So it's an area called Barking Riverside. So you've got, we call it Old Barking. You've got Old Barking, and then you cross the A13, and it's an area that's just on the Thames, and it's closer to like Beckton. So it's just near Beckton, like around the city airport area, where there are a lot of new builds and new developments there. And they're getting an overground line. So the overground line is about 3 minutes from my flat.
Yeah, so it's a completely new development. There wasn't sort of any sort of residential properties around the area.
There was nothing there before that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point that I don't think I even really thought about. It's not just the teething issues with your flat, but it's like the teething issues with an area that's newly developed that didn't exist before. And like you're talking about, like transport is still being sort of built. You know, like it's.
But even things like the things you kind of take for granted when you don't live in an area like that. So, for example, now I know that there are 10 to 15,000 residents in the area and 1 GP. So I had a newborn, and why can I not see the GP, please? Or it's things like that. The type of amenities that you're needing, you know, it's difficult.
Granted. That's interesting. I didn't even think of that aspect. But that's an important thing for people to think about. Definitely. How much did it cost?
So at the time when we bought it, it was 305,995, I think. So basically 306.
What was the percentage? What was the percentage loan that you got?
So 75% LTV. So I did. Do you mean with Help to Buy? So
from Help to Buy, how much did you? How much you get for?
So with Help to Buy, they put 20% up.
20%. So that's around 61k.
And I had to come with 5%.
5%, which is around 15,000.
So at the time, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about this, but the way that it works with Help to Buy is that you don't pay back the amount you borrowed initially. You pay back the value, your loan percentage. So for example, I lent 20% of the flat value, and so when I sell it, for however much I sell it,
Hmm.
Obviously, it has to be assessed by, an independent surveyor.
Hmm.
But however much I sell it for, the government will get 20% of that value. So I don't have to pay back, for example, 61 odd. I'll either pay back more if the house price increased and I sell it at a higher amount, or I'll pay back less if the house price drops.
But the next thing I wanted to find out was about the application process, the buying process, what that was like. Because I don't think many people know what the application's like. I think you see, you go on Zoopla and you see houses or flats that are
Mm.
advertised, and it has the Help to Buy logo. But what happens? Like, how does that whole application process work?
Sure. So I had been looking for a place for a really long time. And this is, like I said, this is back in 2017. Had a couple of places that I'd gone to look at that I was interested in. And for me, I wanted to stay in South London, but it's where I grew up. It was what I was used to. But in terms of the amount and the quality of the build of flats that I was looking at, it just wasn't there in South London. So I ended up looking a bit further afield, and I would look on different house builder websites to see what developments they had coming up. And yeah, I came across this development in East London, and it was one of those ones that I'd heard about that were going, the places were going really, really quickly. So it was kind of what you'd do. You'd go for like an open day, an open morning, if you like. You'd
Hmm.
see a show home and register your interest. So you'd go and you'd see like a copy of the plan. You'd talk to their sales agents who would
Hmm.
just they'd describe the area to you and the kind of development process and the timelines, if you like. Wasn't that much of a conversation about the financials because that was
Hmm.
kind of handed off at a later point.
Hmm.
But you'd turn up and it's kind of a fight to the teeth type thing that you turn up and get your appointment. Um, and what I remember was it being incredibly busy going there, and so many plots had already been sold. So you're literally shown a massive plan.
Hmm.
You describe what it is you want. They tell you what you've got available, and then you reserve something on the day. If you decide that you don't want it at a later stage,
Hmm.
you've just lost your reservation fee, which is like 250, maybe £500
Okay.
or something like that. But you're not actually tied in at that point to do absolutely anything.
It's just
You
that
just
reservation
reserve.
fee.
It's
Yeah.
just a reservation fee to say they won't market this particular property anymore.
So they give you the sales price.
Mm.
Is there any sort of room for negotiation? Is it just here's the price, um, or can you negotiate? It's just not something you did at that time.
To be honest with you, I don't actually know the answer
Okay,
to that. So
okay.
the impression that I got is that it was a non-negotiable. Here's the amount that these are going for, and
Hmm.
it's a kind of it's a supply and demand type thing, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was difficult enough to get the space on the open morning, and a lot of these places, in my experience, and
Hmm.
in my experience when we were several times when we've looked to move
Hmm.
to whether it be a new build house or even when we were looking to sell up, and these places they go quite quickly. So a lot of the
Okay.
time you will find that the places have been promised to people, or people have reserved plots
Hmm.
before the open mornings have even happened.
Do
So
you,
they won't even get to advertise before the plots have gone.
so do you think the house builder sort of plays that up a bit? Like, how
Yeah.
did was it busy? Did you know it was busy because they were saying that we don't have many sort of spots? How did you know it was busy? Is it you saw people coming and going?
So it's almost it's literally an open morning and everyone turns up. So
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
I knew I knew the open morning. So spaces to book your appointment for the open
yeah.
morning were going. Say they went live. Let's say call it Friday, 10
Hmm.
a.m.
Hmm.
I'm calling from like 9:45 every minute to make sure, and it's taking me a while to get through, and I'm on hold and I'm number 15 in the queue. So by
Yeah,
the
yeah,
time
yeah.
I'd already got there, I think they opened at 9 a.m. and my appointment was like 9:30. I'd say by 9:30 they'd already sold about 50% of the plots there.
How does the Help to Buy application come into it? So you put in a reservation fee. What happens next?
That is then discussed with your solicitor at a later point. So
Okay.
from the house builder's perspective, they offer, I think they offer Help to Buy, so they're part of the scheme.
Hmm.
I'm not too sure of the intricacies of how that then ties in with the government. So as far as I understand, and again, this is me kind of my layman's understanding,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
literally the government are kind of subsidizing certain house builders to offer Help to Buy.
yeah, yeah.
So there will be that it's almost like they will say Help to Buy is available in particular developments. So, and it's the same way that they do, for example, when they build certain new builds, and they'll say a percentage is available for social housing. So it's almost like an undertaking of the government to say, yes, these will be available for Help to Buy.
So you don't need to, when you sort of reserve that property, you don't need to tell them you're using Help to Buy. That's something you do
No,
with your
it's
solicitor sort
marketed.
of later. Okay.
Correct, but it's also marketed as
As
these are
Help to Buy.
available for Help to
Yeah.
Buy.
So
So
you
at the
know.
time when I was looking, there weren't a huge amount that were available for Help to Buy in the area of East London I was looking at. A lot of them were shared ownership, and that was something I ruled out. So as soon as I saw a new development, tick the box in terms of prices, kind of area I was looking at, you know, the size, and it was available for Help to Buy, it was like, let's jump at this.
How does your solicitor apply for Help to Buy?
So they will do that at the point, as far as I understand, you will have your, is it mortgage in principle? Is it, I can't remember
Mortgage in
what it's.
principle. Okay, yeah.
I think so.
From your lender.
You'll have, and you tell your lender that you're looking at Help to Buy, but only once you've, oh gosh, I can't even recall at which stage that they go through and do that. I feel like they're going through and doing all of that at the same time as they're doing the searches and stuff like that, because they have to provide documents too. It's almost like applying for a separate mortgage, because it is like a second charge on the property. So
but
you'll
it's
have
done
the
by
first
the
charge
solicitor
with,
rather than the
but the
mortgage broker.
solicitor will do it. Yeah. The solicitor will do all of that.
And you said that with the asking price, you pretty much paid what the sales price was, and you weren't sure whether you were able to negotiate. I guess because of how sort of that day went, they created that sort of environment where it's like you have to go now. You have to sort of put in the offer at the asking price, otherwise you're not gonna be able to get the property. But like, I was gonna ask, were you able to negotiate? Because I know there's this idea that there's something called the Help to Buy premium, which is that people that use Help to Buy pay more for their new build property than people that are not using Help to Buy.
Do you know, in that kind of situation where you've got, you know, a first time buyer of a new build property, Help to Buy or not, do you know of examples where people negotiate that, the ask?
No. So this is something I'm still looking into. And I actually found, so that piece of research done by Which was very general. And I was sort of looking into it more. And the National Audit Office actually did their own research into it and found that Help to Buy users are not paying any more than non-Help to Buy users for new build properties. And they actually, I'll link to this article down in the description, but they actually found that the reason why media outlets like Which were coming up with these findings that people are paying more with using Help to Buy is because they're not comparing like for like. With the National Audit Office, they were comparing properties of similar sizes, similar postcodes, sold at similar times, and they were looking at both those that used Help to Buy and didn't use Help to Buy, and they found, I think there was 1% difference in it. And I can believe that, especially from what you said, that when you sort of put in that reservation fee initially, they don't even know whether you're going to use Help to Buy. I mean, it's assumed maybe you're going to use Help to Buy because you're, buying a property that's Help to Buy eligible.
Well, it was also advertised as that as well, right?
Yeah.
So
but it's not actually done until a later point in the sort of sell process. So like, I can believe that there isn't much of a difference. And I think as well, like, the other thing is, I think first time buyers are more likely to pay more for whether it's existing or new. They're more likely to pay more for a property than somebody who's buying a second property, because I think with your second property, you're a bit more, I don't know, you're a bit more experienced. You sort of know the sort of mistakes you made. You sort of know, maybe I paid a bit too much for that. You're just a bit more experienced. So I think it's more generally that first-time buyers pay more for properties than people who are buying a second property.
And I think, if I can speak from this is very personal experience. How can I put this? When you're coming at it from a position where this isn't my forever home. At the time I was 24, 25, and I've saved up an amount, but also compared to like place that I'm looking for with my family now, the kind of deposit that I'm going to be needing, the due diligence and the time that I'm taking to look at this property that may be maybe my forever home may not be, maybe my place for the next 15 years while my kids are in school type thing, then that the kind of due diligence that I'm doing and the thought process is just a lot more thorough. And the things that are now important to me, and the time in which I've taken to maybe research the market, look at the kind of things that I'm going to want, the kind of area I'm going to want to live, all of these things change. Whereas at the time, I was a quotation marks a single person. I wasn't married, didn't have kids. My life was I'm wanting to be in a particular area that is close for me to get to work. I want to be out, being able to socialize, etc., etc. So the decision making process was a lot different to where I would be now if I'm now bringing 25% deposit of my own cash into something. Because it's kind of a situation where it's like, okay, if all things fail and I drop on my face, it's like I can work my way out of this at 25. I'm like, if I'm putting all of my life savings into something now, I'm going to be a lot more diligent with what it is that I'm doing. So I can see how, again, for myself, I can see how I just kind of said, you know what, this is the price. Happy to pay because it ticks, 90% of what it is I'm after.
So, okay, 5 years into Help to Buy, almost 5 years, because you bought in 2017, April 2017. So yeah, almost 5 years. What are your thoughts on the scheme?
It's a difficult question because if you were to ask me this pre-Grenfell, and we didn't have any fire safety issues and all of these kind of conversations hadn't happened, because actually we were wanting to sell. Well, actually, we had a timeline to sell before Grenfell happened, so that was always going to be our plan. And it was one of those things where I think if I had taken a couple more years, at the time when I bought, I didn't want to rent. And when I was looking at what the cost of my mortgage compared to what I would pay in rent in London, I couldn't even do a house share, like in a decent area for, 1 bedroom place. I wouldn't even be able to do that. My mortgage was a lot cheaper than rent would be. So I was like, this is win-win. Like I can't lose here. You're not getting any money on saving, like the bank account, you're looking, savings accounts are paying you absolutely nothing. I've got cash sitting here. This is the best case scenario for me. Post Grenfell, now that there's been obviously all the fire safety issues, etc., etc., it's a difficult place because effectively, and I know there's been very recent updates. This is something that is constantly evolving. But effectively, we have a place that we can't sell and is arguably valued at nothing until the fire safety is remediated, because you've got mortgage lenders who are just not willing to release funds against a property that has not had the fire safety work. It's not brought up to current standard.
What's that thing? Is it
ESW1?
Yeah, ESW.
ESW1. The bane of my life.
Yeah. So we're gonna come on to that. We're gonna come to it because I guess there are sort of there are two aspects to it. There's Help to Buy, and then there's the fire safety crisis. And I guess what I'm hearing is that with Help to Buy, your thoughts on Help to Buy in isolation are positive because it sort of allowed you to get onto the property ladder, and
objectively, absolutely,
and it was cheaper than renting.
I'm a fan.
It was cheaper than renting. So those are the pros. But then I guess we'll touch on it a bit later. But I guess what it meant was you're buying a new build, and new builds all over the country are suffering right now because of the fire safety crisis, which I think is a much bigger issue than people realise, but it's mainly affecting new build properties. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. So yeah, to answer your question, objectively, with Help to Buy, on the face of it, I would still say it's a really good scheme for somebody who was in my similar circumstances, because you don't have to put up, the kind of deposits that you would be looking at in London to find something where come into the bank with 5%, your interest rate's going to be through the roof. So this enabled me to get on the housing ladder. It wasn't a massive amount of cash in the grand scheme of things in terms of what I know people are having to put down, and my interest rate was still pretty reasonable. So, like I said, objectively, I think it's great, but I think when you start to look at the way things have gone over the last 2-3 years, that's when you start to say, well, actually, if I'd done X and Y different, but it's kind of it's a difficult one.
Just going on to that, like, what advice would you have for anyone that's thinking about using the Help to Buy loan scheme?
I think I was talking to someone the other day at work and then talking about like moving roles and jobs and stuff like that. And someone gave me really, really good advice about when you take your next role, don't just think about the role you're taking. When you move role, you have to think about, how does this set me up for my role after that? How does it all come into play? And I think that kind of advice would also work when you're thinking about buying somewhere, because my views were very short term. It was very much the interest. I'm having to pay interest on this in 5 years' time. I'm in a 2-bedroom flat. I'm in an area of East London where I don't have that many connections, but also it's great for work. It's great for, friends. Didn't have much family around. So I knew it was always a very short-term plan for me, sell out and move on. I didn't, it's one of those difficult things. It's like I didn't account for but what if I can't do, and then there's that list of X, Y, and Z. I can't sell out. What if I'm stuck for any eventuality? And then where does that then leave me? And I think I didn't, other than the kind of financial aspect, it was kind of, okay, I could sell at a loss. It doesn't really matter. I'm not, it's not absolutely every penny that I have. I'm not selling out and losing everything. But I guess the predicament now is where I'm at is that I have this place that I'm spending, an awful amount of money on, and it's not fit for purpose because it doesn't fit my family. So at 25, I wasn't like, I'm gonna, have by 32, I'm gonna have 2 kids, a whole husband.
And this
in the same place that was only really meant for me. Exactly. So if I'd kind of done that thought process and said, well, actually, after this is where I'll be, I may have reconsidered. So really, I think the advice would be, think a bit longer term, as much as even if you don't think you will be keeping the property that you're about to buy for the longest time, just kind of try and work out what all of those eventualities could be. Where's the next move after that? And how have you set yourself up for that?
So future plans. Are you able to pay back your Help to Buy loan? What are your future plans?
So I'll need to sell the flat. So the idea is to sell the flat and then the Help to Buy will be paid back out of that. But I'm in a position at the moment where with fire safety, my service charge is through the roof. So
it's increased, and what it's not. Can you even sell?
Increases of no, at the moment I can't. No, I had a sale fall through. We're in 2022 now. Gosh, spring last year, sale fell through,
and that was because of
fire safety.
Fire safety, because you didn't have the EWS1.
So we'd had the evaluation. We were told that the ESW1 was going to be signed. At the time, we didn't understand exactly how it worked, and even if there were fire safety issues, because there's actually no cladding. Like, my building's actually made out of brick, so the cladding on the building, it's not on my flat. It's some decorative cladding. Which it couldn't spread fire to my flat because it's on a completely other side of the building. It's literally, the other side. But it failed the fire safety. And at the time, some mortgage lenders weren't asking for the fire safety certificate, so for the ESW1. And it was kind of running around like a mad hatter trying to find out if my buyer's lender was going to ask for the SW1. And I was maybe a week away from exchange, and the buyer was in a rush. I wasn't necessarily in a rush, but it was a kind of, I want to get it sold and sorted out. And it fell through.
Was it because of that cladding, or was it because of other sort of fire safety issues?
So it was fire cavity. The cavity walls were missing.
And I think people don't realise that it's not. I guess when people hear sort of the cladding scandal, and that's how it's been sort of talked about as the cladding scandal, they just think it's to do with cladding, because I guess that was the issue with
Right.
Grenfell that sort of, brought all of these issues to the front, to people's attention. But it's actually now been discovered that there are many other sort of fire safety issues, like as you said,
So
the cavity
the issues that need remediating are not, it's not the cladding on my building. We
wall.
have balconies that are made of flammable material. That's what the problem is.
Unless you're directly affected by it, or you know someone that's directly affected by it, I don't think
Mm.
people are fully aware of how big the issue is. And I guess until it starts, affecting the rest of the housing market, I don't think people are it's gonna grab people's attentions when sort
Well,
of
I think
deals are
this is
falling
why
through.
you've seen Michael Gove come out and I think it's Michael Gove now. He was
Yeah, yeah, Michael Gove,
someone
yeah.
else. It was Robert Jenrick before,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
He was the
he's
housing
the next
secretary or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Gove now. But I think the reason that they've come out and had to really step in is that what's happened is you kind of make the housing market illiquid because you
Mm,
need
mm, mm,
those first time buyers to upwardly mobilize
mm, mm,
to help the market keep ticking over. You need
mm,
those smaller places for people to get onto the property ladder. So
mm,
when you freeze that out, you're literally freezing up the market. But not only that, I guess you've got to think about the idea that you've told this almost a generation, a massive group of young people to say, well, actually, here's a scheme, affordable housing, get on the property ladder, we'll make this straightforward for you. And then you're trapping people in these places because they can't sell.
mm, mm,
So people are, I know of people that have had two, three kids, life circumstances, you need to move. It's not workable living in the place that you're in, and they're absolutely stuck.
mm,
And then on top of that, it's not just about the idea of being able to sell your house or your home. You you're then kind of, your hand is forced because most of these properties are leasehold,
mm,
as is the law in England, although they're
mm,
making changes to that. So
mm,
most of these properties are leasehold and you're bound by these service charges. But where
mm,
you've got fire safety issues, your building insurer is turning around and saying, well, I'm not insuring you for the
mm,
same amount. Your building insurance is going up 150%.
mm,
And you now need a waking watch. You need people to go around with a flashlight every hour on the hour to check there are no physical fires in your building because your the protections in the building are not going to withhold and withstand fire in the way they're meant to. So you need physical people that are walking around the block to check there are no fires. These people come at a cost. So now, if we take my example, my service charge
mm,
has literally tripled.
because
So
of
it's,
the insurance and the wake and watch and these other sort of measures.
but we don't
That
even have wake in watch.
Yeah.
It's literally the building insurance. Where it stands now is that house builders are going to be made forced to legally forced to remediate the places that aren't fire safe, and
Mhm,
then the cost isn't going to fall on leaseholders,
mhm,
as is my understanding. I don't know what the cutoff is. I don't know if
mhm,
that's absolutely every building.
mhm,
I don't know
mhm,
if that is buildings over a certain height. I
mhm,
think it might be, but I'm not too sure.
mhm,
But what's actually quite interesting is that we have a very, very vocal and active residents association that's been campaigning,
mhm,
for so long. They're fantastic. And what they were campaigning on was getting the house builder, so Bellway in my example,
mhm.
to pay. So interestingly, 2 weeks before Michael Grove's announcement, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, there was an announcement from the house builder, Bellway, to say that they would pay and cover the cost of absolutely everything.
So
So
cladding, cavity walls,
everything,
balconies. Oh, wow. Yeah.
everything,
Okay.
balconies, cavity walls, cladding, they were going to pay for the lot.
Okay.
Um, which, I mean, as they should, given they've set aside a fund of, I think it was like 10 million to remediate fire safety. It's kind of like, well, you can dip into your pocket for our
Mm, mm,
balconies
mm,
then.
mm, mm, mm.
But
Uh,
the only issue with that is that now that it's fallen on Bellway, and now that Michael Gove's an announcement has been made, Bellway are going to have to remediate all of the buildings that they've built that are not up to standard.
mhm, mhm,
So the question then becomes, what's the timeline for this?
mhm, mm, mhm,
Because
mhm.
forget just my help to buy, the interest being pure my help to buy,
Yeah.
but I'm now stumped with service charge that is ridiculous, like thousands of
Yeah.
pounds. And this is for
And
6 months.
that's not being covered in these sort of measures by sort of Bellway. They're
No.
paying
So
for the works,
until
but
they
they're not.
do this,
Yeah, you're going to be paying that
until they
service charge.
remediate, we're going to be paying that service charge. I know
Yeah.
people that have got £6,000, £7,000 bills.
So what's next? Is everything basically on pause until it's
Pretty
fixed?
much.
Until
Yeah. I would love the idea of keeping it,
Mhm,
being able to keep it, and once this fire safety stuff is sorted,
mhm,
paying off the Help to Buy and then renting it out and keeping
mhm.
it as a
Sort of an investment
property. But
property. Yeah.
this is it, yeah.
Mm,
Especially because the area, I think the area is really going to be up and coming. You've got, like I said, a lot of transport links. It's becoming quite connected. It's quite sort of sought after, especially because we've got the parking space with it as well. But
yeah.
just the fact that it's leasehold, that
Mm,
is going to be my one thing that holds me back with
sort of puts
keeping
you
it. I
off.
think
Yeah.
being where I am now and kind of thinking about, I've got to think about what is it that I'm not even leaving my kids, because
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
32. But
Yeah.
like, is it when you think about, is it a property that my kids can inherit? Are we going to have that as an investment in the family, etc., etc.? It just the service charge thing really is what is holding me back there. So I
Yeah.
think it's highly likely that
You'll
we'll take
sell.
our money
Yeah,
out of
but
there, even if we were to
you
put
can
that into
invest in
something.
something else, can't you? Yeah.
With
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. But watch this space.
Yeah. Now that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, then please give the video a like. If you have any comments or questions, then please leave them down in the comment section below. And if you want to support leaseholders that have been and are being affected by the building safety crisis, then please visit buildingsafetycrisis.org and follow the Twitter handle PolluterPaysBSB. Links to both can be found in the description of this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.